Hey guys, it's John, small time bookseller, coming at you again because I sold some books on ye olden eBays, and I'm going to move this box of glasses before I knock it on the floor. And so that's what I do. I move boxes of glasses around and I tell you about it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And I also sell books. And when I do sell books, I will come here and I'll tell you a little bit about it. And that's all I do. So I don't do any garage sale videos. I don't do yard sale videos. I don't do, the GoPros at the Goodwill bins that are looking at my hands all ragged and weary, exultantly equipped with hundreds of muskets taken from the Spanish garrison of Tunja. No, tens of muskets maybe, but hundreds? Oh, a bit excessive. Don't want to be too ostentatious on the old channel, do we? So we're going to talk about what I sold in July. So this is going to be July 1st through the 15th. And had some good sales. Had a couple very high dollar sales. So this was right after I got back from vacation. I got back sometime in July. And so yes, yeah, that's right. July 1st through the 15th. And we're just going to get into it. And hopefully you'll find something that you like here. I've had a total of 19 sales, so 17 books and 2 Naughta books. One of the Naughta books was not a bad sale. It's actually one of the higher sales I've ever had. So stick around for that. And one of the books was one of the highest book sales I've ever had too. It was a good, had some high dollar stuff, but 19 sales in 15 days is less than I would like. I would like to be at about 2 sales a day, but for part of that I was on vacation, and so I'll take it for sure. Things have picked up, for the most part, recently. So we're going to get into it, if you don't mind. I'll go from my least expensive, least valuable, least profitable, least pecuniary? What was that word? What's the word I'm thinking of? Pecuniary? Something like that. Low dollar to high dollar is basically what I'm doing. What word am I thinking of? Anyhow, so we're going to start off right here. The first book is An Illustrated History of New Mexico, which sold for $9. So real quickly, I get my books nowadays almost exclusively at the Goodwill bins up in Houston. There's 3 of them that I tend to go to. There's 4 in Houston, but the 4th one is pretty far north, so I don't go there much. But the 3 that I do go to, I usually get my books there. There's a couple, there's a good thrift store right around the corner from where I work in Lake Jackson. It's in Clute. It's not in Lake Jackson, darn it. It's in Clute. In Clute? That's not quite as fun to say, but we'll work with that. We'll see if we can get that in there somehow. And I get some books from them whenever they have it. It's just a real small store, so I just kind of go in on my lunch break once or twice a week, and occasionally I'll go by library sales as well. So there's 2 libraries in the area that have a book for sale wall, and sometimes I find good stuff there, but not often. So majority of stuff is coming from Goodwill bins, and those sell for 2 for $1. So unless I mention it, you can assume I got the stuff for 50 cents. So until recently, they were 3 for $1, so they were 33 cents then. And so this was probably there. So, and also at this point, I don't ever list anything below $10. So if I sold something for $9, it sat for a while. Maybe I sent out an offer because I had it listed for 10. I sent out an offer for 9, or somebody sent me an offer for 9, but I wouldn't list it for less than that. So when I'm sourcing books and I'm looking at them and I'm looking them up, if they sell for under 10, I let it go. And yeah, so that's kind of if I get into this more full time, I'll probably sell more lower dollar items. But right now, it's just kind of a for fun thing I do on the weekend, a little bit at night when I'm watching the Astros win, as they did tonight. Yeah, boy. And that's what I do. So moving on. Next book was Scuba Confidential, which also sold for $9. books about very specific activities or places. New Mexico, scuba diving, those are the kind of things you want to look for. And the next one was the second copy I've sold of this is L.A. Noir, and that sold for $10. And then the Best of the Bassmaster, book 2, sold for $10 as well. Fishing books are kind of hit and miss with me. They don't sell really well. Hunting, especially when you get into things like specifically bear hunting or big game African hunting, those tend to sell a little better than most of the fishing books. But I always look them up anyways because you just never know. And this was $10, so hey, I'll take a $10 sale. Moving on, we had Heimatroman Auswahlband. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Romane in einen Buch. I'm guessing that was all German because I counted in German. It's over $12. So that had sat for a long time. And sometimes I'll pick up books. I sold a book in Dutch recently. Those Spanish books sell pretty regularly. But the other languages, it's rare. But they're fun to sell and they're fun to say. So that's really why I got it. Just so I could say it. I just had it on the shelf there. Occasionally I'd pull it off and be, oh, Heimatroman Auswahlband. Ha ha, yes, yes. Anyhow, moving on. We had the Ultimate Guide to SAT Grammar that sold for $14. Study books, study guides are always good sellers. I usually don't mind putting those just in a basic, I thought I had one here, bubble mailer. It's easy to ship, things that are going to be consumable, meaning people are going to write in them and use them. I don't worry about a lot of bubble wrap and putting it in a box. I need to do another video on boxing because I have changed a little bit on when I put up my last video on how to box things, what I do. I have actually amended that somewhat. So I do need to put out a new video on what I do to box things. But this is an example of something that I might put one layer bubble wrap, but in a bubble mailer, and that could ship off like that. Moving on, we have The Coming of Age. This one was stated as a first American edition, and that sold for $15. Always be very careful when you see something that says first edition. So the fact that this said first American edition, to me, that guarantees that that's not a true first edition. So there must have been maybe a British edition or some other country had the true first edition. So make sure that if you're listing something as a first edition, it's important that you do the research and make sure that it actually is a first edition. And there is no standardized way to do that. So especially in older books, it can be very difficult to know if something is a true first edition or not. But if it's not going to make a lot of difference in value, you know, I wouldn't even list it possibly. So, but if it does make a difference, you need to make sure that what you're saying you're selling is really what you are selling. And so this one said first American edition. So I put that in the title, first American edition. Sometimes if you have one that there's good value in, you might say true first edition. Like if I had one that was a British press that said first edition, and that was a real first edition of this, and I would put in true or real first edition. Just to make sure people know this is not the American edition. This is the actual true first edition. But that one did sell for $15 as a first American edition. All right, next we have The Design of Special Hazard and Fire Alarm Systems. $15 on that one. Can't beat that. Spacewalker. This one is listed as a first edition, and it sold for $15. Then, oh, I skipped one. Sorry, here's one I skipped. 20 plus higher ed theories I learned in grad school sold for $12. So I missed that one between my 10 and my 15s. Education books are all another hit and miss ones. You have some that do sell in the $10 to $15, even $20 range. Things that are more about diagnostics and testing and with social emotional learning or special education or ESL, those tend to sell better than something that's just like third grade math or something like that. I taught third grade math, so no offense there. But, you know, those kind of things sell less than the more, I guess, more specialized areas is what's going to sell better for education books. And then when you get to master's degrees and things like that, and books that are required for advanced degrees, then that's another issue there. But I'm thinking about more for, like, for school teachers, things that they're going to be using, hit and miss on whether they sell or not. Okay. Next, we had the Texas History Movies. This book was from 1970, and it sold for $18. Anything with the word Texas in it, I'm always going to look it up. So I suggest you do too, just because I'm in Texas. I see a lot of them around here, but local history, Texans love Texas too. So anything that with the word Texas in it, it's always going to be worth looking up for sure. And the Lazy DM's Workbook. I believe this is Dungeon Master's Workbook. So anything related to role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, any of those kinds of things like that, look it up. Some of them could have some value, and this one sold for $18. Another good genre is music. So this is all the best heavy metal hits for guitar. And this sold for $18. Tablature books, lyric sheets, books on, that have guitar music in them, I sell quite regularly. So those are good sellers for me. And then another good genre, of course, is religion. Bibles, yes, but more so the commentaries and things like that on religion. This is the Living Theological Heritage of the United Church of Christ, Volume 7. Sold for $30, just Volume 7. So if you imagine if you had all of those, that could be quite a nice little find. Robust Process Control sold for $30. Area where I am is very close to a lot of chemical plants. So Dow and Schlumberger and a lot of other companies are within 30, 40 minutes of here. So I see a lot of books related to the oil and gas industry. And this is one of them, this process control for process techs that work at those. So not only the new ones that people need for current certification can be worth something, but also older ones. I'm not sure if they are collectible, historical, or if people are still need to fix and work on older machines and these apply. I really don't know, but I do sell those pretty well. The next one was Not a Book, my first Not a Book, and this was a CD, stained CD, and I didn't write down the title of the CD here, but the main thing about it is it was signed. So a lot of times when I'm looking in the bins, you see a lot of old CDs. I just pop open the case and take a look. Yeah, obviously you're looking to see if the CD's there, but also look over on the book, because a lot of times you'll find up, not a lot, it's happened a few times, opened up, thing signed. So did I have it verified or anything like that? No. So I have to put that in. I look up verified signatures online. I do my comparison. So it'll look the same. Signatures look very similar to other ones I saw online. In the description, I'm going to say not verified, and I'm not going to sell it if they were verified and I'd gotten them, with a, what's it called, certificate of authenticity, then I would have sold it for a lot more if I had that, but I'm not going to go through the time and the money to do something like that. So I'll sell them as unverified, but it still sold for $42. The next one is a good book. This is The Story of Wake Island, first edition, 1947. This is a book about the Marines, and it sold for $50. There seem to be different versions. This was the red version, and so when you're doing your research, you see other books to make sure that you're finding out, things like that. If you notice things like that, you specify which one you have. And also put that in the title, because as I've learned, people don't read the descriptions as well as I wish they would. And so I put that actually in the title of the book. All right, my next one. There are two more here. My next is my best book sale. And it was one that I found at that little thrift store right on the corner from work in Clute. Nah, it didn't quite work. But it was this hardback cover of 1984 Berkeley Press book club edition of Dune. And it sold for, wait for it, $225. Nice sale. I don't know, a couple weeks or so after I sold this, I was at Goodwill Bins with my dad, and we were looking at things, and he doesn't know a lot about the reselling business. He and my mom like to sell a few things here and there, but mostly he just kind of hands me things that I might want. But he'll be on his phone, he'll look up a book, and he looked at me and goes, oh, he just starts laughing. He goes, well, look at this. Why do people think this? And I look over at him, and he's got a copy of Dune. It wasn't a hardback, it was a softback. And he's like, why do people think this is going to sell for $200? And I was like, dude, that really is one. Yes, get that. And so I let him keep that. He just recently called me a couple weeks ago. He said it sold for $150. So that's kind of fun to, just to be able to share that with him. And then my last sale is my biggest not a book sale, and that's this. I sold 70 QRS word scrolls. These are piano player rolls, and the 70 of them sold for $250. Imagine you're at the Goodwill Bins. You're walking around. You see in the corner bin over there a big pile of just stuff. Just little square boxes. I went over there, opened one up, pulled it out, and it's you can tell what it is. It's a roll of player piano roll. And so some of them, you could tell people have been out. They'd already, a battery died right in the middle of that wonderful, wonderful story. Anyhow, I was telling you about finding those QRS rolls, I think they're called. Yeah. And Goodwill Bins, overflowing the bins. And I looked at them, and I knew that there could be some value in those. I know that Drew over at Tip of the Mitt Flips, he has sold some of those before. He sold his individually. These didn't seem to have much individual value. Some of them maybe $10 or $15 each. I just decided to lot them up. So I ended up with 70 rolls. There were more there that, like I say, got ruined because people would just kind of, what are these things? And they strewn them all out. So I don't know how much I paid for them, because it would have been, by the pound there. So I may have spent $30 on those. Could it have been that much? I don't know. And sold them for $250. So that was by far the best. Well, not by far, because I had that Dune book, but that was a really nice sale. So totals, 17 books sold for $460 for a $27.05 average, which is above my completely arbitrary and made up price of $25 that I consider to be a good sales period. And my two Nada books for $292, which surprisingly, I actually hit the mark. I was going for a $146 average, as I often do. $146 tends to be the usual, and that nailed it once again. $146 for my two Nada books. And yeah, so that was, those two big sales really helped out. That otherwise, would have been a little iffy. So for those 15 days, I had, if I like to average $44 in sales a day, and that way, after fees, after paying for the shipping and everything like that, I'll average about $1,000 a month, which is kind of my goal. My goal is to be $1,000 a month in the bank, like, the actual Tuesday checks coming to my bank, $1,000 a month. So 15 times 44 would be $660, and I got $752, so I was above my goal, which is nice. So that's kind of what I do on a daily basis. I like, as soon as I hit $44, I'm good. Like today I had one sale, but it was for $75. So hey, met my goal. I like to sell more books, but if I get one good one, that's fine. And then if I'm a little low tomorrow, I can say, well, yesterday I had 75, but to kind of average it out like that. Another thing, I recently kind of I've done a couple things, and one of them is for the first time ever, I actually culled the herd. I took down a lot of sales. I went through, so if you go to your eBay listings, when you do the customizable table, you can select one of the items you can display is start date. And I've never taken down and relisted, so all of mine are from the actual start date from when I put them up originally. And I organized by start, and anything that had been on the shelf and unsold for 2 years, I took down. Not quite everything, because some things are higher dollar, and I know I'm just kind of waiting for a right person. But these are things that I have over time gotten down to $10, and if they haven't sold for $10 and they've been up for 2 years, I took it down. So I took down almost 100 books over the weekend, put them in a box, put them in 3 boxes, took them to Half Price Books, sold them for $31. So I got 31 bucks out of it, and I got a lot of room on my shelves. And so I don't know what you guys do, how long you leave things up. I know I hear some people say, well, this hasn't sold for 3 months, so I'm going to take it down. Books are a little different, and I have room. If I'm really, started getting tight for room, then that's when I needed to. But, books don't take up a lot of room, so it's a little bit different model for me. And so, but I finally decided to do that for those. So then what I'll do is come October 1st, so I did everything that through September 1st of 2021. So then October 1st, I'll go in and I'll see what had not sold for the last 2 years, and I'll take those down. I'll try to keep it an ongoing process. So I'll do it the first of every month is take down. So this time, after I did that, ones that were coming up that have been up for like 18 months, I lowered the price. I put them down to $10. If they haven't sold for 18 months, so that was a big change that I did this weekend. It felt kind of weird, like taking some of these books I remembered picking them up because that was when I first started selling, and I just knew that big book on Berlin was going to sell, and it just never did. So it's kind of funny to go back and realize the things that, those Nicholas Sparks books never sold. I can't imagine. And now I know that they don't sell, so I don't pick them up anymore. But back then, at the very beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I'm getting rid of a lot of those now, but that's kind of fun. The other thing, since I am pretty much relegated strictly to Goodwill bins, and there are some really hardcore booksellers up in Houston who are at the Goodwill bins, open to close every single day, as far as I can tell, because they're there literally every time I show up. They're there, and I'm, and so they are very aggressive, and they're there all the time. So I'm getting more and more strictly looking at older books, which there's a lot of value there, and I'm doing pretty well with it, but that's fine. But I'm also, a lot of my sales in the past were newer books that I used to get at the bin drop, the Amazon return store in Lake Jackson, but which closed, so I don't have that source anymore. So I thought I needed to expand, and I decided to expand in a couple different ways, so I'm going to start selling more of, and one of them is hats. So I like this Goat Taco House hat. And so one thing I like about selling books is that they're easy to ship and they're hard to break. And so hats are the same way. They're easy to ship and they're hard to break. So I got a lot of boxes. I've sold a couple already, and just some things. And they're at the Goodwill bins. I see hats all the time, and they're cheap. You can pick up a hat for, they were what, $1.19 a pound. So like a hat is going to be like 20 cents. Literally. So, I got like this John Deere hat. This is a George Strait. This is a, B29. I thought that was kind of cool. This US Contractors, but look at that. It's kind of a cool design on it. Older LA Dodgers hat. I've picked up probably 100 hats in the last week or so. And like I said, I've started selling those just to kind of expand because sometimes I go to the Goodwill bins and there are no books. They're just not selling them, and there's no bins of books. So then what am I going to do? Well, now start looking at hats, and the other thing I'll look at are albums. So there's albums a lot of times, and a lot of times it's classical, or it's Andy Williams, or it's things like that, or older Broadway soundtracks and things, and those just don't have the value. And most of the time, they're not in good condition at all. A couple weeks ago, I was at the Goodwill bins, and there was a stack of good condition records from early 80s. First one I saw was Yaz Upstairs at Eric's, which is an album I loved when I was a teenager. And so I saw that one, I was like, oh, cool. And then underneath that was a Depeche Mode album. And then I just started pulling more and more. And I have sold from that lot a Chicago album for $45. I sold the Yaz. I sold the Depeche Mode. I've probably sold 7 or 8 of them. And so, again, they're easy to break, but they're easy to ship. So I got record mailers, and I put those, I usually do little bubble wrap, 2 sheets this way, 2 sheets the other way, and then in the record mailer, and then I'll send those off. And so far so good with all of the ones I've shipped out. Last time I was up at the Goodwill, I found a whole bunch of these. I haven't looked the value up in these, but this is something that I saw, and I was like, okay, I'm picking these up. A whole bunch of Duran Duran. This is the Latin Rascals mix, Notorious. This disco mix, Tiger from Duran Duran. Some of these, I think, are these maybe 12-inch singles or something? I'm not sure exactly, because it's, like I say, I haven't, but when I see something like this, they're in good condition. Rio. You know, this is Night Romantic, so just look at them. Look at those guys. And so that's my other thing. I'm expanding. So records, hats, and now records and hats, as well as the books. So I think it's always good to keep learning, keep expanding. The hats have been fun. You know, I know that I did sell a Scotty Cameron visor for $100. So there are some of them do have really good value. But other times they're just, most of the time the hats, I expect them to go for the $10 to $15 range. But like I say, easy to pick up, easy to ship, easy to box, easy to ship. And, you know, I'm going to be happy to make a lot of $10 to $15 sales on the hats. Hopefully a lot. So that's it for me. Hope to, hope you all are doing well and selling the heck out of a bunch of stuff. And hopefully I can be able to slice these 2 videos together. And hope it wasn't too long. But anyhow, take it easy. I hope to see you sooner rather than later. Adios.